Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And in this one, I'm going to be giving you a rundown, a solo shuffle PvP guide for the Enhancement Shaman. Although it is maybe on the weaker side, it is definitely still really fun. It blasts out massive damage numbers, and if you start to tweak it a certain way, you're definitely going to be able to get results with it. If you want to make sure that you're staying up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, then smash that subscribe button. The talent build will also be linked in the description down below, so you want to plug that bad boy in and start playing right away. So in this lobby, we got a melee cleave lobby with 2 holy paladins. So in this lobby, there's no decurse. Hex is really powerful. You want to start the game with Earth Elemental and Spirit Wolves before you begin your engagement, and then get Flame Shock and try and spread Flame Shock with Lava Lash onto as many targets as possible. The main goal of this is that your Primordial Wave, which will then give you 10 Maelstrom, which will then enable your Lightning Bolt to hit multiple targets. It will give you a huge amount of haste, which is just going to help you generate the engine of stats that you're going to be after spamming elemental blasts and getting stats from that as well. And it's this stacking of stats along with bloodlust onto your partner that is really going to make you wreak havoc. So we're just cleaving, pressing Storm Strike, Ice Strike, and Lava Lash whenever they are available. And whenever we see that we can get a Hex or something, we want to try be moving towards the enemy healer. We should be looking to try and interrupt these Repentances. This one right here, a really important spell to use your Wind Shear on. But we are getting low, and you really want to abuse Healing Surge at the moment before dampening gets high. Healing Surge does a ton of healing. When we managed to sneak in a Hex here while the Death Knight's Interrupt was down, we can use a Wind Shear on the Searing Glare and then into a Lightning Lasso. The Death Knight still doesn't have a kick, so this stun is going to sit full duration into an Ellie Blast that hits for 300,000. So it does a monstrous amount of damage, really meaty crits. You want to keep Ellie Blast on cooldown as much as possible. Press your Bloodlust pretty much on cooldown. It's sometimes nice to kind of chain it together with your DPS's stuns so that the enemies can't run away from the Bloodlust, and then just try and maintain Flame Shock as many people as you can, and then lob out that Lightning Bolt after your Primo Wave, and look at that, just the entire team just gets zapped. It feels really like Miss Pandaria Enhancement Shaman. We're going to keep spending our Maelstrom as we get it. Here we're using it on heals just because I'm dipping about below 50% health, but now we get this guy in pretty much execute range, so we're just going to Lightning Bolt him, one tap him, and take him down into the next round. So we got the Death Knight on our team. This is a squishier composition, and we don't have mortal wounds. This is usually when you're really going to be tested on Enhancement Shaman and your ability to navigate defensively. You need to abuse Ghost Wolf, Thunderstorm, and Earth Grab Totem in this type of matchup, because the only advantage you have is that you can suppress snares while you're being attacked, and the Death Knight has powerful snares like Chains of Ice. So you need to try your best to try and keep the Warrior and Ret Paladin away and kite them whenever possible. Same start of the game, we want to get that Earth Elemental down, so the opener we got more stamina, and get our Feral Wolves down, Spirit Wolves down as well, so we're not wasting time on that, because you have a lot, you're really stressed for globals. So Earth Ellie's down, Spirit Wolves are out, and we're just going to be lobbing out Flame Shocks as soon as possible, getting ready to then go for the Primordial Wave. And I end up just shooting the Primordial Wave immediately. I think it's just because I want to get my stats on this counter assault. We get the double Bloodlust. We're maximum statted. We got all of our Ellie Blasts out. We're going to use Ancestral Guidance at the start of the game. This is going to bolster our healing, and we almost one-tap the red. We get Divine Shield pretty much out in the opener, and this is why you Spirit Wolves right away, because you're going to reset the cooldown of them pretty rapidly. Now, you do want to use your Shield Wall here very early against Rets and Warriors, usually lining up with their Warbreaker and the Avenging Wrath, and then sneak in Hexes. Whenever you're not getting attacked, you want to use your casted spells. So I get a Hex on the healer, and then I lasso the Ret. This cross CCs 2 players, and we can continue to blast down the Ret Paladin with Ellie Blasts and take out a quick game. Whenever enemies with interrupts get away from you and you have a chance to cast spells, you want to cast them, because lasso and Hex are super valuable in these situations when there is no decurse or no ranged kick. You can absolutely carry the game with control and bursts in those moments. Now we've got the Ret Paladin on our team. Same kind of deal. It's kind of tough with no Mortal Strike. Honestly, with this composition, you can swap to healers. Hammer of Justice on Holy Paladin, swap into them, and Roots and Hex on DPS can be good. But you can do it either way. It really depends on if the enemy Holy Paladin is being aggressive or not and coming close to you. Chasing them while your Chains of Ice is not going to work around the pillar. So just pay attention to where the enemy healer is, because attacking a Paladin can actually be really good and effective. We're just going to Earth Grab the Death Knight in midfield, get our Wolves out, get our pets out, get the Flame Shocks chunks out, Primordial Wave Lightning Bolt as soon as possible. We want to be getting to that Bloodlust. We want to be cycling these as quickly as possible because there's such low cooldown with Primordial Wave around 40 seconds and Bloodlust at 1 minute. You're going to get way more value the faster that you're cycling these through. Interrupts aren't near me, so I'm going to use a lasso onto the warrior and kite away from the Death Knight, where we are looking to continue to reset our Spirit Wolves, and we're just going to call that in right away. You want to be pressing Spirit Wolves on CD as much as possible, and then just spam Lightning Bolts whenever you don't have Ellie Blast and you don't need to Healing Surge. I do try to make sure that I keep Earth Shield up, especially if you're Searing Glared by this Holy Paladin. You want to be using your healing spells. Now I see a chance to try and go for a Hex, so I use Grounding Totem to try and interrupt the Death Knight, which does actually soak his Death Grip, but you can also interrupt or soak up Mind Freeze with Grounding Totem. We'll use Thunderstorm and Earth Grab, knock the Death Knight out of zone, and then root him, and then continue to go for Hexes. And it's really not a big deal if you don't get them and you get kicked, because then the interrupts aren't going to be available for your healer. So it's never a bad thing, really, to get interrupted. We've used our wall here at the beginning as well to trade for their initial cooldowns. In this type of melee lobby, you do want to be paying attention to that. Here's Repentance. So we got to switch our attention to the Paladin, and he's kind of getting close. So attacking him or hexing him here are perfectly viable options. Should have used the Grounding Totem here onto that Repentance, but I'm watching the Paladin. Primo Wave, triple Lightning Bolt, quadruple onto the pet. We got a huge amount of haste right now. We really want to be going crazy with that damage. Lasso onto the warrior. Death Knight moves away from me with his interrupt. That gets a trinket for the warrior. We can root his trinket and then move over to the Death Knight. Try and punish a trinket if you can with Earth Grab against melee when they break out of a stun or break out of a hex or something like that. You can always try and punish the trinkets. Our Ret's taking a lot of damage here, and I'm still focusing on doing Ellie Blast. It can be risky. We use Sunder here just to get a global of interrupting and disrupting their damage. You want to try and purge these bops. So we're playing Greater Purge here to try and get it, but we don't end up hitting the bop, so we're just going to go for hexes. Here I'm fake casting interrupts. I'm trying to get a precog, probably get a precog. Now we can just go for a full hex onto the Paladin. The warrior used his trinket earlier, so he's a prime target. Keep spamming Feral Spirits as soon as possible. Keep dunking your Ellie Blast whenever you have them with Maelstrom, because they're going to give you more stats. Keep your engine going. We get bubble from the Paladin with the Repentance. Warrior's really low. We should be using Tremor here on the Fear. Still pay attention when your healer is CC'd. Here we got a choice. You could Bloodlust healer when you get low like this with no cooldowns. I sometimes do it, but we actually Bloodlust the Rep Paladin. And then we're just blasting down the Death Knight. We get Sacrifice. We got Ancestral Guidance coming up soon. You can see why it's so important to just cycle your cooldowns as soon as possible, because we're going to get 2 guidances in this game, which is way more value than only getting 1. Get a Hammer of Justice. Go for a Hex. We got our Primordial Wave. We got a Lasso. We're away from the interrupts, so we're going to take advantage of that. Go for the Lasso stun. Primo Wave Lightning Bolt. Big Bang Lightning Bolt. And we're going to be taking round 3 as well in this position. So always pay attention to the enemy healer if they come in nearby. Try and disrupt them, swap to them, hex them, punish them. Don't let them just get away with kind of walking on top of your team. When you do get a chance to sneak away from your enemy attackers and you can get a cast off, you definitely want to be getting that cast off. Cycle your cooldowns pretty much as possible. Ancestral Guidance almost as soon as combat has engaged, so you get 2 of them. Feral Spirits as well, because you want as many of those little bad boy wolves as you can. And Earth Ellie at the start generally is the scariest time in the game, so if you want to reduce the chance of just like randomly dying in the opener, pop your Earth Ellie before the game starts. So same deal in this opener. Earth Ellie, Spirit Wolves, Flame Shock onto as many people as possible, Primo Wave, Lightning Bolt, Bloodlust, and then go crazy. Just spam whatever you want really at that point. Lava Lash, Ice Strike, and Frost Shock, and use your Ellie Blast as you can to get stats. So see the Red Paladin and the Warrior, we're cleaving them down. We grip in the Holy Paladin. You can see I'm kind of moving away from the melee attackers. This is to fish for a Hex, and you can cast Hex while Warriors are Blade Storming. A lot of Warriors run the talent that makes it so they can't cancel their Blade Storm, so they can't pummel you. So you can cast a Hex while they're Blade Storming and just not be interrupted. It's super useful to pay attention to that and try and make sure that they're not. And against Death Knights, they won't be. We want to use the Tremor Totem on the Fear here. Keep hammering out those Ellie Blasts. Keep getting stacks. We got a Bop, so now I can cast Hex without being interrupted. Bop gives you physical immunity. So we're going to Hex Warrior and then Lasso Ret, and that gets both of their trinkets. So utilizing these casted spells is getting us really far ahead on utility. We're still shoving Primordial Waves as much as possible. Get a double Earth Grab here to try and slow them down in case my Death Knight needs to run. He's about half health. It's kind of a scary moment. Chunking out the Ellie Blast. Get these Feral Spirits going again as soon as I can here. Because it's such a low cooldown, you just want to get them out as much as you can. We get them down and again. Should be paying attention to the Holy Paladin as well as the Ret, because he's playing Searing Glare. So Searing Glare or Holy Paladin cast are generally what you want to be interrupting. We get a Hammer of Justice, and look, we're on top of the Holy Paladin. You may as well hit him. This is why you want to pay attention for swaps. And that swap right there gets a Divine Shield, which is protecting him from damage, but also crowd control in the future. So now no trinket, no shield. Means if we get a Hex on him in the near future, we can pretty much win the game. Should have went for a Shock here. I think I had Searing Glare. It wouldn't have landed anyways. I just swapped back to the Paladin because he's just come out of the bubble as well. Fear of Spirits on him, force him to run away a bit. Ellie Blast, taking a lot of damage right now though, so we're going to drop an Earth Grab, Ghost Wolf, and try and kite. And this is where, pay attention when you're taking a lot of damage, use Thunderstorm, use Earth Grabs, and use Ghost Wolves, and just kind of run away. Don't always just max out your damage. Like, pay attention. I don't have any defensive cooldowns, so my healer CC'd. I got to use Ghost Wolf roots. I got to do what I can to avoid damage. We toss out a Hex after we've avoided it into a Hammer of Justice. Now we got the Ret Paladin more isolated. Ellie Blast and Big Frost Shocks are coming through, and we're going to force Divine Shield from the Ret Paladin. And I'm still kind of pulling away. You can see I'm not just standing right on top of the warrior because I still don't have defensives. And even with that, in this position, I don't know if I was on Forbearance there for that last second, but something from the Paladin definitely needed to be exchanged. But I think I also had Burrow. So in those moments, be more focused on defense. This is where it's going to cost you a round, like it cost me right there. If you're playing with something like a Death Knight, it's going to be a much slower game. It's going to take longer to work through their cooldowns when you don't have mortal wounds. So pay attention to what's rotating next. I think I definitely did have Burrow, so pay attention to that, burrowing away and trying to run. You got to think of it yourself as like a hybrid melee Ellie, where you're kind of just like, I don't have defensives. You got to be on your toes, getting ready to bounce away, paying attention to what you can do, what you can trade in those moments, healing, surging, Earth Shield up, and then as soon as you have defensives, you can go into full aggressive mode where you're just doing damage and standing on top of them. Start the game, Earth Ellie, Feral Spirits, Flame Shocks out on as many people as we can. We're going to Primal Wave Lightning Bolt Bloodlust, and this is going to give us a huge boost of stats to let's just clobber them down. We get Blinding Sleeted on it. You don't want to trinket this because you're probably going to get stunned by Asphyxiate or even a Hammer of Justice in this type of matchup, so we're going to sit through the Blinding Sleet, Stormbolt onto the healer into a full Fear. So I could try and cast a Hex, but I'm just focusing on doing damage. Now we're switching into Hex mode. We get kicked on the Hex. Again, not a big deal. We can still use our wall when we're kicked, and we end up getting a Repentance. So we soak the interrupt for our healer, and then our healer gets a CC onto their Paladin anyways, and we force tons of cooldowns. Anti-Magic Zone's down, Thunderstorm them out of that. Can use Earth Grab on Thunderstorm as well. It's a really nice combo of spells just to prevent enemies from getting back in their defense cooldown or getting back to you in general. I see Hammer of Justice. I'm fishing for hexes. He's on DR, so these hexes I'm casting are to bait interrupts, but the Paladin moved away from me. He's the only interrupt, so now I can stun the Death Knight and try and bait his trinket or a potential cooldown from him, and then continue to blast damage down on him and just absolutely chunk him out of the game. Those are the satisfying moments on the enhancement. Those are the moments where you're kind of thinking like, maybe enhance isn't that actually that bad when you get a nice little chunk of damage like that. So pay attention when you can get those lassos off. It's a super big point to take advantage of. We're moving into this final round. Always try and keep the Earth Shields up as well in between. I try and refresh the Earth Shields when I don't have Ellie Blasts. I feel like getting Ellie Blast up for your stats is really good, but I prioritize the Earth Shield over the Lightning Bolts when you don't have the Ellie Blast, especially when you're falling behind or don't have defensive cooldowns to mitigate damage. You can see I'm not playing Healing Stream either. It's really global intensive. And honestly not worth the healing output and with such high dampening of Solo Shuffle. Earth Ellie, Feral Spirits out, get the Flame Shocks rolling on as many players as you can, Primal Wave, Lightning Bolt, and we got those stat stacks, and we're ready to throw out the Bloodlust and go ham, but we get Storm Bolted. So we're going to hold off on the Bloodlust for a little bit until the Ret Paladin gets into the game. I started noticing the Ret was like really far from the fight, but as soon as Hammer Justice lands, pop that Bloodlust, Ellie Blasts are rolling. Here I'm disarmed and can't attack, so we're just going to kite with Earth Grab onto the Death Knight and just kind of move away, and now I'm out of range of an interrupt, so I'm going to use a stun and just try and min-max that opportunity to reduce damage, and then now my Holy Paladin can sneak in and get a Repentance onto the healer while they're busy dealing with all of my casts. So stun into a Hex, Death Knight's getting low, I want to get close, Lava Lash that Flame Shock onto as many people as possible. Lava Lash is a really good tool for spreading Flame Shock because a lot of healers will spam Dispel. Now my healer is CC'd. I got to focus on defense. So we're going to use our wall, refresh Earth Shield, and we're going to focus more on probably healing surges, assuming that our Paladin doesn't recover. Anti-Magic Zone is down. Thunderstorm, knock him out. He's got freedom. We can't root it. So instead, we're just going to jump towards the enemy healer. I start poking him a little bit. It's kind of just like baiting cooldowns, but I think here Hexium would be good as well. And honestly, poking him baited him to trinket. He fakes me though on my Wind Shear, so it's going to put us a little behind. I wanted to go for an Earth Grab and a root on his trinket, but I'm going to go for a Lightning Stun here, try and run away from the Death Knight's interrupt. We get a Searing Glare preventing his Mind Freeze. Repentance is coming from the Holy Paladin on the side here. I should be paying attention to this and wind sharing it, and also yourself if you're playing on the Enhancement Shaman. Trying to fish for a Hex, trying to fake for a kick, get a precog, and then go for the Hex onto the healer. Not really able to get it. He's playing max range for me, which makes it really difficult, so we're going to Thunderstorm them, and here we don't have a lot of defense. Burrow's our last one, so we got freedom, and we can just use Ghost Wolf, and we can just book it, try and cross the map, use Healing Surges, wait for our defensive cooldown, cooldowns, kite them into a bad position, and really my rep paladin is rocking the Death Knight while I'm just pulling the warrior around in circles. And we actually get a repentance, so our enemy healer, our ally healer, is doing a great job getting CC while we're focused on just retreating away, and then we can come back into the fight after that CC is landed and start to develop momentum for our team. We got Primordial Wave here, but our Flame Shock's anti-magic shield, so we're just kind of waiting for that to go down before we go for the Primal Wave Lightning Bolt and get those massive haste stacks as soon as possible, because that's our engine. We go for Lasso. Here's the mistake. I did it in range of the kick. Bop comes through just a little bit too late. If that had hit with the Lasso, it would have been insane. It's not really still a big deal, though. Ellie Blast coming in, big crits, purge the bop as soon as possible. Tremor out of the fear. It's the only fear on their team, so you want to drop that as soon as possible. Feral Spirits are out. Another Ellie Blast, and he is solo at this point. The Searing Glare, man, I can't believe he actually survived. You want to just be using your totems, like your groundings, try and stop any damage that you can, soak some hits, and get the win. So I've really been enjoying Enhancement Shaman. If you want to watch me live, my stream is also linked in the description down below, and I am broadcasting pretty much every day. So I hope that this content is helpful to you in your journeys on the Enhancement Shaman and enabling you to get more fun out of it. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.